Yeah, I think I completely agree. The fact that there is a lot of diversity in India on identity and food that reflects the identity. But what we are seeing right now is this forced imposition of only one minority group, and it is a minority group's food habits on everybody else. And once it becomes institutionalized, I think that becomes a problem. I think one group who does it, who's discriminating against our food habits, we try to file a police complaint and take them to court and all. But when the state starts supporting and backing up these impositions, I think that's where the real trouble starts. I mean, we had so many issues during Navratri at South Asian University as well, in multiple colleges here in Delhi, over chicken being served to students during this phase. It started off with Maharashtra, that they will not fund eggs being served in midday meals. And that is where this sort of erasure. And I personally, even when I'm living alone in Delhi and on the days of Navratri, because I'm not a very religious person and my food is dictated by what I want to eat and cook that day, even when I am thinking of ordering chicken either from a restaurant, through any of the food delivery apps, or raw chicken from a store, uh, either the stores will be shut, that there's forced closure of the stores during religious occasions, or I'll be afraid that in recent times, my delivery person can be threatened on the street because they are delivering my food. And there have been incidents where they've been asked that, call up who has ordered, are they Hindu or Muslim? Ask them why they are ordering this food. So even if we say this is a very Hindu habit, right? I'm also from a Hindu family, but the fact that, even as you mentioned from your field study, even in one religious group, this one practice is not followed, that there is so much diversity. But when one is being propagated as this is the right way and yours is the wrong way, then that becomes such an issue. And I remember I was dating somebody who was from the northern Indian hills, and they would eat vegetarian and also fast during the Sawan month. And monsoons in North India, they don't eat fish, they say you shouldn't. But in Bengal, monsoon is the time to eat fish, because we have wonderful fish eggs, fish oil, and big fishes coming up in the Ganga Delta, and that is the season. And I was visiting home. I was in Kolkata, then I went to Bangalore. Great food hubs both. I had a lot of fish in Kolkata. I had a lot of chicken and mutton in Bangalore, and I got a nosebleed because I obviously ate too much and my body heated up, and I got a nosebleed. And I was also scared because it was my first big nosebleed. So I called, when they called me, the person I was dating, and I said, "Oh, I had a nosebleed." So, like, you know why? Because you had so much fish and then you had meat in Bangalore. This is why in Sawan we eat veg, because it's healthy, because this is the weather where your body gets heated up. So, this idea that my tradition and practice is healthy and scientific and yours is not, I think that is when, and it comes down to personal relationships as well, right? It comes down to these things and this forced imposition. Do you see it being worse now? I'm sure it was never good. I mean, it was never good. But now, even with the fact that we get information so easily and we can very well know, okay, this person eats this. But this hostility that it's coming on because of what's on my plate, do you see it a lot more now than it used to be?
I think it's more visible now, and unfortunately, it's institutionalized. It's also standardized, and it is taken in as the right way to monitor, which is really very disturbing. But at the same time, the more the restriction, it strengthens the aggression. For instance, we're sitting here discussing this, and I'm very happy that a lot of regional food is also coming to the forefront. Regional food, which are always relegated in the backdrop, they're coming in the forefront. There are food pop ups from different corners of India that are happening right here in the capital city. There are bloggers who are blogging about the most unusual dish they've eaten. There are quaint small restaurants that are serving with pride, the food of their generations. So I think the more the erasure attempt, it only strengthens the aggression. So I'm very happy that it's been resisted in different forms. We will continue to eat. We will continue to talk about it. Now there are cookbooks documenting rare food from different parts of India. So I think in parallel, what's interesting is the rise of this force that feels that we need to document, we need to speak up, but not speak up in the form of a protest, but taking up a very structured way of, preserving. And people also realize that these are a part of history that can't be erased. So I'm very happy with that kind of attempt. And even the talk here that we have is also a form of protest, if I may say, Yeah.
As you said, during Navratri, the shops being thing, I'm also, time a certain sacrifice of an animal takes place in Muslim households, it's mandatory to share. Mandatory to share the sacrifice with your relatives, with your loved ones, and everything. And the past few years, no, since 2014, I would say, my family, I live closer to my, mother's side, but my father's side lives afar, like a 40-45 minutes ride or something. So it's just that my mother, every time my father has to, take the sacrifice, take their share of the meat to my dadi's house or anyone, my mother is constantly worried that people might stop you midway, you know. And that is something, it's in everyday routine. So it's like, nahi, every year on this Eid, you have to be careful only, Hadia. There's no problem in that. It's like, no, it's problematic. It's so normalized for us to be defensive all the time that we think that ऐसे ही चलता आ रहा है ऐसे ही होगा. But then again, Navratri, yes, Navratri, such a beautiful time. It's a time for community building and everything, but every time I would open my Instagram during Navratri, one case or the other would pop up on my feed from UP especially, that this shop was shut, this person was killed, this person was beaten up. And I think in the midst of such a beautiful time of or whatever celebrations and everything, I see my friends very closely celebrating it and everything. It's so beautiful to look at them. But then you look at Instagram and then you look at all these people fighting to just, merely, for them, it's not even food, it's about their survival. There is that shop, that means shop is their livelihood. And I mean, it's absurd. And as Harsha rightfully pointed out, that even in hostels, the people feeling the right that they can dictate a certain chef कि नहीं आप नहीं बनाओगे, and not taking into account that there are maybe other 100 people living in that hostel. But no, if if your religion is not allowing allowing you to eat a certain ingredients during for a certain period of time, you will make sure that it is not served for the other 100 as well. This fundamentalism is, yeah, I mean, it's, as ma'am rightfully said, that this is a protest in a civilized way, which will actually make people hear about all of our perspectives. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of resonate very much with what Hadia told about families kind of normalizing us into, okay, be careful, don't, I mean, hide whatever you're carrying, don't show it to people. I mean, this sort of it's like hiding a certain food to kind of to avoid any danger sort of a thing. Why one has to be in this situation? Like it's as though like you can eat some things like visibly and you can't eat some things like invisibly. So as I mean, I from my point of view, like I and my brother also write about it, like how many Dalit families like migrating to cities, like kind of also does this where like there'll be many painful experiences of like how because of certain eating traditions and habits, like people will be shedding them all in the cities, where, for example, like back in our village, our ancestors, our grandparents side people, they very much like do have like all kinds of meats in their cuisine. Like my father, they would be sharing experiences that like, but even while being at village, like their parents would start shielding certain food from them so that like they won't face problem later on. So my father used to tell like how his mother like used to eat like beef behind the home and cook it behind the home because uh, uh, inside the home or kind of maybe like she's always scared of like catching public attention or anything. So how like generationally that fear, that trauma also gets passed on. So today I ask about like what is your favorite memories of food? Like my father kind of like is anxious, gets panicked about all these traumatizing experience of food, like, and like they would also after coming to cities, they would also go to the extent of like kind of homogenizing, fine tuning their palate, like to kind of suit the neighborhood's toleration or whatever and all, and that's very painful and oppressing. And that I mean, only I think like I mean that kind of shielding also kind of follows through as children to us also, where mom was like, don't carry non-veg in carriages, like that might invite like
And there's a
some.
hierarchy too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Sorry
yeah,
to cut you, but there's a hierarchy. For
yeah, yeah.
example, I know snails being eaten. Even in parts of West Bengal, we call it googly, because there are so many rice paddy fields. There are small snails that are there, and a lot of families will pick it up. And I never got to eat it, but my
But
mother
that's a
would say
delicacy.
it's a delicacy.
Yeah,
My mother would say,
yeah.
when we would have, it would rain and there were these paddy fields, your grandmother would bring this googly, and we know some families, and we would also at times cook and eat it. Even when it rains and there is waterlogging, there are small fishes that come up. So everybody catches it and they cook it. And I think when we tell people that, oh, this food is from our history, like Bengali food is informed so much by the Bengal famines. So we eat part of a vegetable which is otherwise thrown away, like the stem of a cauliflower. We have something called kosha bhaja, which is basically vegetable peels fried, which are fried, and also it's informed by that. But when often you tell people, no, they'll say that, but now you have emerged out of that situation, why don't you refine your palate? And I think their food becomes a hierarchy, that what food is the refined food and what food is the unrefined food that you're eating.
Yeah, if I could just add, see, if I look at students from the Northeast who have to really navigate their way in rented accommodations in North Delhi, I just thought, yeah, it has come down to that level that will you cook your stinky food? Has a gas cylinder burst? Um, what is it that you're going to cook? All that validation that they need to be, I mean, they need to seek all of those, and also to negotiate their way just to eat what it is. So if food has come down to that, then what state are we? It's very worrisome. It also brings me to a very important aspect, that do we know our country well enough to understand that a person who come from this part, this is the delicacy, this is a part of the diet, and we must understand that the food we eat are not by choice. A lot of times we have to depend on what is the topography around us. So the food habits are also shaped by, for instance, in the Northeast, the food habit is shaped by the soil, the storm, the sun, the terrain, all of those. So we have to eat those. And when you come out, it's very natural that you will continue to eat what is comfortable for you. Of course, there's an assimilation, but not to the point that you will take on the other food as yours. A part of that, what you carry, will always be there to define you as a comfort food, as something that connects you. So I think when we think larger, when I think deeper, there is the disconnect, and the ignorance stems from the fact that we don't know our country enough. There is a sense of complacency for people who are just sitting in the center, perhaps, to see that anything that they can't see beyond is other, it's abnormal, it's not accepted, it's not, it's in the periphery, it doesn't matter enough. So I think uh, we need to introspect more and see, where does this come from, because it's not just ignorance, and where did the ignorance come from?
Yeah, and one thing, that a country which cannot feed all its citizens, and undernourishment is so high, hunger is so high, can that country really dictate what their citizens can eat when everybody is not even being fed?
That is what I was just about to say. As you said in the beginning, the example, that we will allow you to have fish. Can you feed people basic nutrients, what they're allowed to have and what they're not allowed to have? Coming on ma'am's point of how, we don't know our country enough, only know it the people who are maybe in power, the privileged. We don't know it, from the perspective of the people at the margins and everything. First year, just got out of school and everything, I wasn't very, aware of things. So I have quite a lot of Northeastern friends. So it was Navratri again. All my examples revolved around Navratri. It's like, I guess I got some mutton biryani or something. It's like, yeah, I have a bite. And then I was like, wait, it's Navratri, are you sure you want to have? Kehti, yeah, yeah. And then she had it. I said, I was so naive back then. I mean, I am telling this now, but I was quite for a lot of time, I was ashamed to share this example. I was like, I thought you were a Hindu. And then she was like, no, Hinduism is so different in the Northeast. It is not remotely even related to what it is in northern India or the central parts of India. Same with my classmate, she told me that Hinduism in the south, so different from the north. And this is such, I mean, it's a drawback and a disadvantage that people like me who are not Hindus, and even Hindus don't know their religion, they don't know how differently it's interpreted in different parts of the country. The broader image that people have of the majority religion of India is taken from northern India or at max the central India. They don't go to the south, they don't go to the east, nowhere. So, that is the problem.
Yeah, sorry, I'm putting my fingers like this because there's so many things I resonate with what ma'am is saying, what Hadia is saying. Talking about, say, like rental accommodation, I've been in Delhi for the last 10 years. Like, um, finding homes, the owners, I mean, there are many ways of reading caste. Like, their preliminary way of reading caste is like vegetarian or non-vegetarian. Uh, and yeah, vegetarian or non-vegetarian, and it was like so people they would deny like for people who would eat and cook meat at home, and they would ask no. Like then I ask, will eggs be all right? Eggs sort of okay will be all right, but make sure when you're bringing eggs into home, like just bring them in a black cover or something. That they would say. And there will be other owners where their home is not where they're renting it out for me, but if you're not living here, what's the problem? Like, no, we are Jains. Like, we make sure that our rented people also like follow, are closer to our customs and all. Oh my God. Like, so that is about rental accommodation and resonating the same thing about this idea of like, do we know our country enough? Like, so this entire idea of like, what is Indian, what is Hindu, like for example, say like similar to Kurbani tradition in our area, I come from this area in Visakhapatnam called Kalinganagar, where we do this small jatra kind of event where a goat is kind of offered as a prasad to the goddess, where the goat kind of travels across the area like smeared with turmeric and all of that, and it is then like sacrificed, butchered, and the mutton curry is made and distributed amongst the area. And in Tamil Nadu and Telangana areas also, like you see, meat is being offered as a prasad to their respective gods, and you see that like this very idea of Hindu or Indian or whatever is also not as what you are trying to define. It's so different and it's so diverse. So like this bigger country, as big as a continent, and every 50 kilometers, 10 kilometers, like food cultures are also changing. So why is this happening? Like, why is this happening that you get to define what it is? I'm taking a long time, but last thing, like even say in hostels, like even hostels, or when five, six of our friends go out to eat, there'll be that one vegetarian, like so one vegetarian who would say like rest of the people will be non-vegetarian. Like for me, can you guys just order vegetarian because all of us can eat vegetarian? Like so, all the 4 5 people have to kind of adjust for that one person, but that one person will not put any effort, to kind of tolerate, understand, accommodate, learn to like. Nobody's forcing you to eat, but learn to understand that all kinds of things exist. So let me kind of adjust and be accommodative. So this sort of a adjustment I never saw much with people like vegetarians or vegans. Like it kind of comes through for me as like some arrogance or something.
I think definitely arrogance, and also it comes from a space of course, comes from a space of arrogance and entitlement that if I don't eat this, then nobody should. And if I don't know something which is beyond my understanding, then it's not normal. So I think it really, at the bottom, it boils down to arrogance, ignorance, and entitlement.
Absolutely. I think it reminds me of this one, even when talking about Hinduism in my family, and we are very mindful that we are not speaking about or for our entire communities, because our crux of our conversation has been that diversity exists in every space, and even within a community, diversity exists. We really are speaking from our own experiences. But with my family, there is one puja that my mother does. It's Shoshti Pujo, which is for the well-being of the children. And she does it, and whenever she does it at home, when the date comes, she calls me and says, make sure you eat fish today. And I say, I don't like the fish in Delhi. Like, okay, make sure you eat chicken today, because fish is so auspicious in Bengali households, and eating non-vegetarian food is considered auspicious. So vegetarian cuisine for that day, and in most cases, it's seen that, if you can afford it, why won't you have fish? Why are you just having a plain vegetarian meal? And because vegetarian food in Bengal, it's very high on carbs. We eat a lot of potato and veggies. It's not really that high on protein or other nutrients. So it's not sustainable in itself for somebody. So in our family, it's believed in my smaller community also, that if you are eating a vegetarian meal, which is a sign that you're not doing well enough, income and all wise, then it will manifest for you. So if you can afford it, have fish. And fish is only mach khate Bangali. That's only used as the synonym for having non-veg. So my mother would call me and I'll say, okay, this is the one ritual I'm happy to follow. I'll have non-veg because you're asking me to for religious reasons. But the fact that these rituals also exist, right? And they get so lost in the larger interpretation of things. And then I feel closer to my culture here in Delhi than I did back then, because as ma'am was saying, that this is resistance, holding on, preserving, and having these dialogues. It's resistance. Sorry, I cut you off. You were going to say
No, no, no.
something.
I was just adding on to ma'am's point that, being a vegetarian, not a problem. Like, we are also might come across to some people that, oh my God, they're attacking vegetarianism. But at the same time, we're just trying to highlight the importance of choosing what you want to eat, right? It's the supremacy that is attached to vegetarianism. That's the problem. Supremacy, which ultimately leads to the oppression of a certain section, not a certain section in this case, honestly, so many, because only one section is, put on a pedestal or something. So that's that.
And also talking beyond like mere vegetarian versus non-vegetarian, talking from a caste lens, like how beyond this binary, like how certain foods also kind of become sort of polluting, or like say for example, my brother's friend, an artist called Rajeshri Goody, she talks about like largely vegetarian food. I mean, she talks about the food culture in her family community, and largely she talks about vegetarian food, but it's as though the vegetarian food, like say food that is also a result of survival and like what is available to people across the socio-economic, cultural sort of a ladder, and what is available to you, and like how you kind of make food, how this is also like recipes of innovation, survival, resistance, like how so-called so-and-so foods also like kind of become polluting or unacceptable to people like as you go higher in the ladder. So beyond even like vegetarian, non-vegetarian, like this very idea of like what can translate as food is also something like that is a conversation that people want to dictate and hegemonize. But later, generations later, you might see like these recipes later, like when they kind of grow in popularity, they will be lapped up by hotels and restaurants and all. This is again another, yeah.
Also, I feel the protein requirement of people differs from people who are in the
Yeah,
hills,
yeah,
who
yeah.
have to do harsh physical tasks, as
Mhm.
against people who are just
Totally,
in the city,
totally.
in harsh weather. So I think the protein requirement is also different. That also shapes the food choice. Yeah. And that's something that we need to really factor in.
Mhm.
Yeah, for the same reason, I don't think any diet ever can be, pan India or followed India, because it's such a diverse country. It's known as a subcontinent for a reason. And I mean, yeah, the whole fundamentalism around food, that you eat this, you are a good person or a pure person, so to say. You eat this, you're an impure person, your entire bloodline is impure. It's, yeah, it's questionable.
Yeah, sorry, one more thing to add. This kind of the way ma'am was also talking about, like how it gets institutionalized, like say for workers in different places, like working classes, how they need like a bulk protein requirement because they do like very hard sort of tasks, and like
Yeah, the
which are very
manual
labor
labor. Yeah, yeah.
intensive, but still like the government or dominant vigilante groups like would easily dictate like no, 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 you will have other options, other alternatives, try them. Like, but do you think everyone will have the privilege, like, to go for these things? And this sort of a dominant ideology will be shout down even on children. Like, say for example, in government schools, when governments like fail to procure basic eggs and rice sort of a thing to children, like then you have schemes like ISKCON's like the Sattvic kind of a scheme taking over all these food children have at Anganwadi centers, and there they would serve this so-called Sattvic food, only vegetarian food, sometimes again without onion and garlic. And people would say that, oh, at least it's feeding children. But no, like, that India is also like one of the places where it's the children are very malnutrition. Like, so like children will be dying for like a bit of egg and little milk, but you will bring in your ideology, your cultural norms, and not bother about like what nutrition is to different people. Yeah.
I wish we could continue this conversation for a while, and we really want to turn this into a series, provided how the future goes. But we will have to wrap up. But last, with like one sentence on thoughts that how does resistance to this hegemony look like? Just one sentence, and then
I'll just,
we
I
close.
think
Yeah.
faith and faith are deeply personal. They should be just left to an individual. What I do in my quiet time with the faith that I believe, it should be left to me. Just as what I eat and what I prefer to eat at home on my dining table should also be left to me. Free me from the clutches of eat this or eat that or pray to that. I think these are deeply personal. Faith and food, please leave it to people. Respect them.
Right. Similarly, how we say that India is a secular country, I understand. I mean, we are all following our faiths and everything, but at the same time, that needs to transcend in the food choices. If you're sitting on the table with somebody, sitting at the same table with somebody who's eating non-vegetarian, or a non-vegetarian seeing somebody eat some vegetarian kind of a food, being disgusted or judging, or, any, displaying any sort of oppressive or discriminatory action, I think everybody should, after listening to us, this podcast, and of course, after due research and look around you, that is what's going to help you to, differentiate that, no, maybe I was wrong before. And there is always time to work on it.
Yeah, like food and resistance. Like, I will still refer to my brother, who I always kind of always look up, like, because he has been an inspiration for me in talking about, like, first and foremost about caste and food. In his show called Come Eat With Me, like, he draws this sort of a community where like people bring their favorite foods, and he also cooks mom's favorite mom's chicken curry, where like that sort of a community opening, a sort of a space where like all people can come and share food and somewhat like cut through all the caste and patriarchal and communal sort of all the boundaries that divide us. That sort of a community building where even if state and institutionalized fringe elements like continue to dictate us like what is deemed eatable and non-eatable, like how we sort of build a sort of a community safe space where like people can eat what they want, the choice is very open, but we share it. Nevertheless, we share the idea, the space, the community. For me in itself, like forming it in itself is resistance. And yeah, I hope the guests also kind of resonate with the same thing. And yeah.
I think that brings us to the end of this episode, although we want to go on. And I think the last idea we are all leaving with is that dialogue is important. Understanding each other is important, and fostering safe spaces where we can learn about each other's food history and have a space where we can understand each other is the first step towards really coming together and fostering peace, and which is why it comes down to piecing narratives. So thank you everyone who joined us here today. I would also like to give a huge shout out and thank you to Mahilals, which is this amazing big cafe and space here in Humayunpur where we are shooting today. If you're ever in Humayunpur and are keen on exploring different kind of foods, or you just need a place to hang out with your friends, remember to check them out, because we are really trying to promote and work with a lot of local small businesses over here. And I hope a lot of discussion on what we did resonated with you, and I hope we will continue having these conversations. And again, we all spoke about our experiences, and there are diversities that exist which were not represented here, and we will try our best to ensure that in future episodes all perspectives are brought in. So thank you so much, and we will be closing the session. A huge shout out to our speakers, and thank you for joining us here today.